what we call public opinion was just a manufactured narrative that makes it easier to convince people that if their views are different, then there's something wrong with that, or there's something wrong with them.
Spending is a tax. As soon as the government spends money, eventually it's a tax. Sometimes we put a direct tax on the people, sometimes we borrow the money, and sometimes we print the money.
Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth.
The Patrick Riggins Show. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Oh, yes. Times like these. We're living in some interesting times right now, aren't we? But amidst all of this crazy, irrational thinking that's pervading this country, you've reached the sanctuary of logic and reason, the repository of the original American ideals of freedom and liberty. Now, what's that you say? You aren't familiar with those terms, freedom and liberty? You weren't taught what those really mean in school? Well, sit up straight, spit out your gum, and start taking notes, because class is beginning here on the Patrick Riggins Show. Welcome again to another big week of the Patrick Riggins Show here on the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network and News Talk 98.7 WOKI. This week, I'd like to start off with having you do a self-examination. And no, this one doesn't require latex gloves nor a mirror. What I want to do is to give you some things to think about and see how it applies to your life, what you're being told and sold on a daily basis. What brought this to my mind this week was this full court press the Obama administration is making to sell this whole unconstitutional legislation known as Obamacare. Now, we've seen polls stating 75% of Americans are against it, and polls stating 70% of Americans are for it, and even some polls stating 40-some-odd% don't know enough about it to make a decision. But I've yet to see someone taking a poll to see how many Americans can find medical care listed as one of the functions of the federal government in the Constitution. Here's a little hint. It's not there. The Constitution, for those of you who don't know, the Constitution states what the federal government can and cannot do. It's all right there in black and white, or really, I guess, black and parchment. But getting back to my point, which currently is the Constitution, we have people who say it allows this or it allows that, or by reading it in a certain way or another. But that's not what we need to be doing as a nation, trying to find ways to circumvent the rules that define our government. Yet, that's what's being done every day in this country by people in whom we entrust the power to create and enforce law. If medical care being provided by the government is such a great idea, then let's amend the Constitution to allow it. Spell it out so there's no mistaking what we're wanting to do. If everyone wants it so bad, then we'll have no problem getting the amendment passed, correct? But if we're being lied to, if this isn't such a great idea, then maybe it won't pass, and that's why we needed to ram it through Congress and not let the people of this nation have time to read and learn about the law. It really shouldn't surprise us, though, this way of passing laws, because that's how it's done for practically everything the government is carrying out these days. If you sit down and look at it, probably 80 to 90% of what the federal government is doing is not allowed by the Constitution. Oh, sure, we've gotten a court somewhere to say it's legal, but it's really not, because it's not listed as a power of the federal government, plain and simple. If we wanted to do it, if it's such a great idea, then passing an amendment should be a breeze. We have these so-called constitutional scholars, of which the president claims to be one, but we have these people who say, oh, the Constitution's outdated. It hasn't kept up with the times. Some smart people put that document together. People who were a lot more respectful of individual rights than just about anybody in government today. But these people, as smart as they are, were also humble. unlike the people in government who now say they have all the answers. That we should thank God we have them to lead us, poor sheep out here in flyover country. Unlike these arrogant people today, our founders knew they didn't know everything. They knew our country would grow and evolve. To accommodate that, they wrote into the Constitution the ability to amend it, to add and subtract things as the country grew and matured. Our founders knew they couldn't see the future. They knew things would come up that needed to be addressed by the country. So these people saying the Constitution is outdated, that its time has passed, well, they're only demonstrating their ignorance of it. Well, in actuality, they know full well you can amend it. What they're hoping is that you don't remember that, or were even taught that lesson in the first place. So by saying the Constitution is outdated, what they're saying is the citizens of this country should just put aside the rules and let the government do what it wants. And I'm not just talking about medical care, government charity, money taken at the point of a gun and given to another citizen. I'm not just talking about that. I'm also talking about spying on us. I'm talking about regulating everything under the sun. I'm talking about not enforcing laws just because they don't work for you politically. All of these things are blatantly unconstitutional. And while you may say, hey, we shouldn't be doing this or that thing, odds are, I bet there's something you benefit from that the government is doing, and it's unconstitutional as well. So the question is, would you be willing to give that up too? Almost half of this country is on some type of government aid. Half. So more than likely, people listening to my voice right now, some of you are in that group. Are you willing to give up your government check, your subsidy, your unconstitutional program, of which you get a nice little benefit? Unfortunately, a lot of people won't do that. Sure, those people living over in the housing project, they need to get a job. Those people getting free food, they need to find a way to get off the government dole. But are you willing to set the example by dropping your benefit as well? This is what I want you to think about. And don't give me this childish, well, they have to give up their benefit first, then I'll give up mine. Yeah, that sounds like a true American. That sounds like someone who has the tough, independent American spirit that used to exist in this country. If you're telling yourself that, or its cousin, which is, if I don't take this money, someone else will. If you're telling yourself something like one of those two things, then yes, you're part of the problem in this country. You're part of the reason we're having so much trouble financially. I know a lot of people feel this way because I've talked to you. I've heard these statements come out of people's mouths. People who are complaining about government taxing everyone. Members of the Tea Party, libertarians. These people who talk the good game, but don't want to play it. Now, I'm not saying everyone in the Tea Party or everyone in the Libertarian Party, but if we took a poll and people answered honestly, it would be an astonishingly high percentage. So what's my point to all of this? It's to make you think about the positions you take, the principles you espouse. Are you just like the major players in the Democrat and Republican parties? Do you preach a good game, but turn around and live another? Are you true to your school? All right, we're up on the first break here on the Patrick Regan Show. Proud charter member of the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network and heard here locally on News Talk 98.7 98.7 WOKI. Get that out of my mouth. I'm being thrown off by the Guns N' Roses here. The Paradise City would be a libertarian city. Or America of old. All right, when we come back, we'll get into the show here. We have a ton to talk about, so don't go away. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.